Once again, Australian rugby finds itself revisiting familiar territory. A new dawn is promised, a new domestic men's competition announced. Yet for so many fans, players, and stakeholders, Rugby Australia's unveiling of Super Rugby AUS evokes a strong sense of déjà vu. The faces are different, the branding is new, but the terrain is all too familiar, and it's littered with the remains of previous failed ventures. This new competition isn't the first of its kind. It follows in the footsteps of at least 4 domestic or third-tier rugby tournaments launched since the game turned professional in the mid-1990s. Each of them began with grand visions and bold ambition. Each of them collapsed, under the weight of cost, poor engagement, fractured support, or all of the above. Yet here we are again. On Tuesday, Rugby Australia announced that the Brumbies, Reds, Waratahs and Force will compete in a September round-robin tournament, ending with a grand final in October. It will feature non-Wallabies contracted players and emerging talent from club competitions and development pathways. It is pitched as the bridge Australia has long needed, between club rugby and the top tier of Super Rugby Pacific. The purpose is clear, to strengthen depth. Because if this year's Super Rugby Pacific performances showed anything, it's that Australia still struggles with depth. When elite players are injured or away with the Wallabies, gaps emerge. Super Rugby AUS aims to plug those gaps by offering a higher standard of competition beneath the elite level. The tournament also serves another vital function, a proving ground for future coaches. It mimics the NRL and AFL's state-based systems, albeit on a shorter timeline. New head coaches will get opportunities in a professional setting, learning to manage squads, game plans, and pressure. It's a sensible move, one the game sorely needs. But the question still looms, will it work? Or will it go the way of the Ricoh Championship, the ARC, the APC, and the NRC? Let's remember what came before. The National Ricoh Championship, launched in 1998, was the first genuine attempt at a third-tier rugby competition in the professional era. It included the Waratahs, Reds and Brumbies. But it failed to gain traction. Critics said the games had no real meaning, the calendar was too crowded, and the fans simply didn't show up. Then Reds coach John Connolly proposed a club-based alternative. By 2000, even the ARU, as RA was then known, expressed doubts, and the Ricoh Championship quietly folded. Still, there were silver linings. That competition gave George Smith and Phil Waugh their first shot at provincial rugby. They debuted for the Wallabies within a year. So yes, development happened. But not enough to justify the format's existence. In 2006, Rugby Australia tried again with the Australian Provincial Championship (APC). It added the newly minted Western Force to the mix. Again, it lasted just a single season. Why? Because it was merely a precursor to a much more ambitious project, the Australian Rugby Championship (ARC). The ARC, launched in 2007, was designed to finally crack the code. 8 brand new teams were created. Some from Sydney and Queensland, others from Victoria, the ACT and WA. Teams like the Central Coast Rays and Ballymore Tornadoes aimed to generate new fan bases. A national conference involving 70 stakeholders had led to its creation. The appetite seemed real. But even before the first game was played, the resistance began. Prominent clubs in the Shute Shield felt left out. They weren't represented directly and wanted to be. They formed what Rupa CEO Tony Dempsey called the Coalition of the Unwilling. It was a battle between tradition and ambition. Dempsey backed the ARC. Other former Wallabies condemned it. Despite the opposition, the ARC did achieve part of its mission. Players emerged. Coaches learned. Matches had intensity. But the money bled. $4.7 million lost in 1 year. Rugby Australia forecast another $3.3 million would be lost if it continued. So it didn't. And crucially, the ARC failed to capture tribal loyalty. The fans didn't adopt the new franchises. No matter how sleek the branding, people weren't emotionally invested. You can't manufacture legacy. You can't replace what's been built over 100 years in Sydney Uni, Randwick, Brothers, or Easts. Then came the National Rugby Championship (NRC) in 2014. It was more measured, more targeted. Fewer teams. Clearer links to existing rugby regions. For 5 seasons, the NRC offered a genuine platform for player development. Many current Wallabies came through it. But again, cost. When COVID hit, RA ended the NRC. Officially, it was paused. But we all knew it wouldn't return. The finances just didn't support it. Now, in 2025, Super Rugby AUS steps into this crowded, complicated history. On paper, it offers everything rugby needs. A competitive platform between club and Super Rugby. Coaching development, player exposure, fan engagement, and a pathway toward rebuilding depth in the Australian game. But success won't be determined by the press release. It'll come down to support. It must be supported by the state unions. Too many previous attempts failed because the states pulled in different directions. Rugby Australia says they're all singing from the same hymn sheet this time. If true, that's a good start. But harmony in a press conference means nothing if it doesn't survive the first few rounds of tough results or injury complaints. It must be supported by the clubs. The Shute Shield and Hospital Cup teams are the heartbeat of Australian rugby. If they feel sidelined again, if they feel like this new competition threatens their relevance, tensions will rise. Their buy-in is essential. It must be supported by the fans. And that's the hardest ask of all. Rugby fans have been burned. They've seen tournaments rise and fall, been told again and again that, this time it's different. Why should they believe now? Because maybe, just maybe, this time it is different. Ra has fewer options. The financial crisis forces them to be smarter, more united. And perhaps finally, the sport understands what it needs, a single direction. Because here's the truth, Australian rugby can't afford more division. The Wallabies' struggles are no mystery. A fragmented system leads to fragmented results. No depth, no continuity, no success. Super Rugby AUS can't save the game. But it can be the start of saving it. If it's cost-effective, if it's embraced by all levels of the game, if it puts the player and the supporter at the center. If everyone rows in the same direction. Because in the end, no tournament, no matter how well designed, will work if the game remains divided. The opportunity is here again. Maybe the last one for a long time. The only question now is whether Australian rugby finds